of judgment. And if you will, quickly look over here to Daniel 2, or I'm sorry, Daniel 12. Look at verse 2, just so you get the picture here. In chapter 2, 12, verse 2, he says, "And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall wake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt." Just keep that in mind. Turn to Matthew 25. Matthew 25. I'm not going to read everything here, but just notice, if you will, starting at verse 31. He said, "And the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him. Then he shall sit upon the throne of his glory." So you know that's millennium, right? Huh?
Yes.
He's not sitting there now. All right. And it says, "And before him shall be gathered all the nations, and he shall separate the one from the other. The shepherd divides his sheep from the goats." And of course, you know the sheep on the right hand, the goats on the left hand. And the goats are those who didn't treat Israel right. You know, when I was naked, you clothed me. When I was hungry, you fed me. And they said, "Well, when did we do that?" He said, "Whatsoever you've done, the least of one of these mine, you done unto me." So what is that? That's the righteous and the unrighteous coming up at judgment. Now, here's what you know. That's not you. You're going to stand before God's judgment seat someday and give an account for yourself. The lost world, Revelation 20, the lost and all those people from the great tribulation and past are going to come up and face God. You're done. You're done. So when he's saying that there's coming a judgment time, and there's going to be wicked at this judgment as well as there's going to be people who aren't wicked. That's a different judgment. That's not your judgment. You can thank God for that. He took care of that judgment for you on Calvary. Otherwise, you'd have to pay for it. All right, verse 17 through 22. Again, evolutionists and the cults understand this to mean that man and beast are the same, and that when we die, we all go to the grave and return to dust, and that's it. That's called a naturalist or naturalism. Nihilism is the teaching, if you go down there a little bit, nihilism is the teaching that means there's no purpose for us being on this earth. There's no reason for our existence. We're just a product of nature. We're here and we go away. That's the way they look at it. And that's your world right now. What are you here for? I don't know. I guess you're just born, you live, you die, and you go back to the grave. No. That's the philosophical way of looking at it, but that isn't what happens. Why? Well, how many of you have ever buried a dog?
Yeah. Amen.
You ever buried a dog?
Amen.
Where did he go? Went in a hole in the ground. You ever bury Aunt Susie? What did you do with her? You put her in the ground. Did you see which way she went? Nope. Did you see which way your dog went? No. So man in his philosophical nature says, hey, dogs die, cats die, birds die, people die. Well, from the philosophical standpoint, I can understand that. But when you get in here, you find out that's not the case. A dog doesn't have a soul. He can't be saved. He can't know there's a hell. He can't know. He just dies. And there is an exception. German shepherds go to heaven. All right, some of you, I thought maybe I could pass that one by you, but you're just too sharp. Solomon points out that man has many common factors with the beasts. We die like they do, return to the dust like they do, require food like they do, and on, and consider that there are several times in the Bible where God himself makes reference to men as beasts. And I'm not going to go look those up, but in Matthew 9:36, he says they're like sheep. In Matthew 10:16, he compares them to sheep among the wolves. I'm going to send you out, among the wolves. In Philippians 3:2, he said they'd be like dogs. And I could go on and on where the comparison, God speaks of beast and man in the comparison, but he's not saying just like you got a soul, they got a soul. He's just saying as a human, you act like a beast. Saved people are sheep. And what does sheep need? Sheep need a shepherd. Why? Because sheep aren't smart enough to take care of themselves. That's not anything personal. I'm just telling you that's the case. We already talked about these other verses, but let me just tell you there's a spiritual difference between man and beast. He will become what is known as an agnostic if he doesn't see that. Why? He thinks you're no different than a dog. You just die. I mean, that's why when you go to the funeral home, here's what people say. They look in the casket. I've heard it, well, let's say almost 100 times now, the funerals I've conducted. Here's what I've heard from people I didn't know, from people who the undertaker told me we had to kick the whiskey bottles all the way to get to the body. And here's what people say. Well, at least they're resting in a better place now.
Yeah. That's right.
He was a good guy. He would give you the shirt off of his back. He would. Why? Philosophically, they don't see that any different than a dog. The difference is you got a soul, and that goes to heaven or hell, one or the other. The doggy just goes back to the dust from which it came from. Except. Solomon didn't have the benefit of the New Testament revelations as we know them. He did not have 2 Corinthians 5, 1 through 8. So from a humanist standpoint, he saw only that man dies like a dog and both return to the dust. The Jehovah's Witness adopted that line of thinking and teach that man is no more than a beast at death. His soul is no different from his body. Then he dies, his soul dies, and he goes to the grave. You tell me what's any different between Jehovah's Witness and the philosophical point of view? There isn't. So they're much more of a cult than you think they are. So what do we take this premise that man is just a creature born of earth and his destiny is to live and die, to eat and drink and be merry, for tomorrow we die? He's Epicurean, Acts 17. He's Epicurean in his philosophy. Note the following verses, and again, I'm not going to look these up because when we get in chapter 5 and 8, we'll talk more about this eat, drink, and be merry. And you're living in that age, my friend. You're living in the age where we want to eat, we want to drink, and we want to have fun. That's where we're at. All right.